This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA.
Welcome, everybody. You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie, Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Summer edition of The Baseline NBA podcast, hot and heavy. My man Shaw doing big things out in Vegas. What will that all entail? Great show on tap for you. Let me go ahead and roll out the red carpet to my right-hand man, brother from another mother, www.shawsports.net, Big Kahuna PNC, my man Warren Shaw, repping back in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, after having a very Christmassy-like NBA-style venture out in Vegas. What's good, brother?
Hey, man, it's good to be back home in Fort Lauderdale. But I had an amazing time out in Las Vegas, Summer League. And salute to all the fans, listeners who were supporting my efforts out there and supporting the Baseline's efforts out in Las Vegas. We have a lot of great content that I was able to capture and bring back. And I think it's going to be an amazing show that everyone's going to enjoy.
All right, definitely, man. So we got some really good stuff going on. My man Shaw had inside access. We don't always get to throw that terminology out there. The IA of the NBA, my man Warren Shaw. Now, I think it should be official. You've been doing this thing for a little bit now. But he's had some inside access, and we have some great interviews lined up for his tenure out in Las Vegas. And then we're also going to talk about a couple of important things to kind of take note at. It's not always about what you see on that basketball court at the Thomas and Mack and the Cox Pavilion Center. A lot of it also, too, is the business that has to be handled for the upcoming season. My man Shaw is in the crux of it. So we're going to definitely dabble into that, man. But once again, we appreciate you and yours for tuning into the Baseline NBA podcast. Be sure to get my man Shaw at Shaw Sports NBA or get at me at GameFace Lee. The show's Twitter handle at NBA Baseline. Available on all the major platforms. As always, download any of those major platforms. Throw your headphones on, allow us to be your go-to resource discussing all things that are with regards to the NBA. You know how we do, and you know how we roll. Time now for the breakdown. Time to break it down.
To the bone gristle.
Time now for the breakdown. Callie, Warren Shaw of the Baseline NBA podcast. And this week on the breakdown, while my man Shaw was out gallivanting through the streets of Vegas, he was a part of one of the up-and-coming premier platforms that I really think is, and we've talked about this in the previous season with our show. We had an excellent guest on board to talk about the platform eCoach. And eCoach is definitely making their presence felt, not just in the summer league, but they're also making their presence felt in the NBA. They're building partnerships, and more importantly, they're building a brand. A brand that I think can help transcend and extend out to the success and the marketability of the game of basketball, not to the current players, but also to the young players who aspire to probably participate and have aspirations and dreams of being in the NBA. And one of the things that I think has always been important, once again, with our podcast is our flexibility and the idea that for us, we're trying to go out and we're expanding into other ventures and where the NBA is touching on that other sports organizations, sports genres might not be doing. So Shaw, talk a little bit about your experience being out there in Vegas League, how it attaches itself with reference to eCoach and what they've been doing. And I think it's obviously, you got to do it, man. You got to roll out the red carpet on this one and kind of lead into, what this opportunity has led you to doing with our segment of the breakdown this week.
Sure, man. Absolutely. I think, one thing it's important to remember is that, again, we had the eCoach guys on there, the executive director of the Coaches Association, Dave Vogel, and then we had Collier Mills as well, too. He worked with the platform directly with eCoach. And this time I saw Collier out there. I got to meet the founders of the program, Rich and Ken, two amazing gentlemen who just showed me the most love possible when it comes to access to what they're doing, the future of the program, and all the coaches they're working with. And Las Vegas Summer League for them really is, again, it's all work. There was almost no fun for them at all, and I really got to know those guys kind of intimately, hanging out with them over the course of 2 days in a gym over there in Henderson, Nevada, about 10 minutes away from the Thomas and Mack. And Doc Rivers was filming his sessions. Billy Donovan was filming his sessions. I got to see Alvin Gentry and see Becky Hammonds as well too. They were filming their sessions, and as a result, eCoach is just, again, they've expanded dramatically in the 5-6 months since we last had them on our show. And the most important thing is that they're just producing content that is so consumable. It's very affordable for everybody, whether you are a player, whether you are a coach itself, whether it's someone who just wants to get better at basketball. You're seeing the drills that these NBA coaches are running and using in their practices and in off season for their player development. So great opportunity to be out there. And what this really led up to was I got an exclusive behind the scenes look after Alvin Gentry's filming session with eCoach. Got to ride back with him. He and Rich Hempel, kind of like almost karaoke style, though we didn't do any
Eat
singing.
your heart out, James Corden. Eat your heart out, man. Now, we just up in the ante a little bit. Usually when James Corden does it, he's usually doing it with pop stars. We doing it with NBA coaches, damn it.
Oh, man, it was amazing. And Alvin, Coach Gentry, he's just such a great guy, such a knowledgeable dude. And we're just so eager to answer any question we had, whether it was about eCoach or the New Orleans Pelicans itself. So great opportunity to ride back with him. It's about maybe 12, 13 minutes long, but go ahead and check this out. My car ride with Coach Alvin Gentry from New Orleans Pelicans and Rich Hempel, founder of eCoach.
What's up, guys? This is Warren Shaw from the NBA Baseline Podcast, and we're doing an exclusive here right now. Riding in the car with coaches. I got Coach Alvin Gentry from the New Orleans Pelicans and the founder of eCoach, the platform we featured on our show a couple months ago, Rich Hempel. What's up, guys? Thanks so much for taking a few minutes here with us, riding in the car back to Coach's Hotel.
How you doing, Warren? Thanks for having us on your podcast again. We appreciate the support.
Thanks for being. I love being here, but they told me this was karaoke. It's not karaoke.
Well, we can do some singing if you like. But Coach, I want to say first of all, congrats on the great season last year and on a new contract. Just talk a little bit about what last season was like for you.
Well, it ended up being basically 2 seasons. We had the DeMarcus Cousins season where we thought we did a great job of playing and having 2 big guys that were really impossible to match up with. And then after DeMarcus went down, we had to open up our offense much more and play with a much faster pace. Our guys was able to make adjustments to that, and obviously we had a good playoff run. Swept the Portland Trailblazers and then lost in 5 games to the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah. So what has the summer been like for you, Coach? Just, what have you been doing since the off season? I know it's a grind all year long, but what's the summer been like for you?
It's been a little tough in that, the free agency thing is a little bit crazy and you never have any idea what exactly is going to happen. But we lost DeMarcus Cousins, we lost Rondo, but we also picked up Julius Randle, and we picked up another young man named Eldrick Payton, who we feel is going to have an opportunity to flourish in the system that we play in, an up-tempo, fast system, because I think that's exactly what he needs.
So I know you've addressed it, and we're going to move on past this here in a little bit here, but just that situation with DeMarcus, was it something where a lot of stuff is being put out there, whether he wanted to come back and whether you guys wanted him back, and was he offered a contract? Can you just put those rumors to rest here and we're going to move on? Well,
I just think it was a situation where it didn't work out the way we wanted it to, and it didn't work out the way he wanted it to. We wish him nothing but the best. He had a great run for us. He was as responsible as anyone the way we started, and everyone forget that when he went down, we had won 8 out of 10 games, and had just gone through a situation where we went to Boston and won, and we ended up sweeping Boston the 2 games we played them. So we felt great about the direction we were going, and unfortunately that team wasn't able to stay together, but I do feel like that we added some people, and I think we're going to be fine.
Awesome, Coach. Thanks so much for that. So last year or early in the year, eCoach launched. What did the Coach Association, how did they pitch it to you when you first heard it? What was your initial thoughts?
Well, I thought that, number one, I thought the presentation was great, and I thought every coach in there felt like this was something that could be really great for basketball. Didn't worry too much about the financial part of it. We just thought that in order to get our game out there and continue to make it a global game, that this would be the best situation that we should possibly be in. And I think everybody wanted to participate. Everybody wanted to know how we can get this organized and get the material out there as quickly as we can in the best way that we possibly can. And I think eCoach is the way to do it. I'm excited about it. There's so many avenues that you can learn, and it's so compartmentalized. It's not one of those things that you got to sit down and listen to a 40-minute tape or anything. It's a situation where if I want to know about out-of-bounds plays, or if I want to know about rebounding, or if I want to know about breaking a press, anything like that, those are available, and I can go directly to those specific things that I'm looking for. And you can bring them up, and it'll take you 4 minutes, and you can look through the so many situations where they're explained by NBA coaches or assistant coaches or someone on that level right there, and it's broken down into a situation where you can very much understand it. So I think this is something that if I would have had when I was growing up, the ability to be able to find this material and have it available to me, that I think I would have been not only a better basketball player, but a much better coach than I am right now also.
Consumability, really, that's what it's all about right now, and especially in today's market, sort of being the demographics, people's attention span being so short-lived. I think that is, like you said, is one of the crowning jewels of the eCoach platform. How do you relate, though, a situation like this with eCoach? I've always wondered with player development, right? Players have their own trainers and things of that nature. How do you, I guess, kind of balance that, with what the player wants to do with his own trainer from what you want them to do as in the staff, and now with different platforms like this? How do you think all those things can kind of mesh together?
Well, I just think that, anytime you can enhance your basketball fundamentals, your basketball knowledge, I think it gives you an opportunity to be more successful. So, once again, eCoach puts you in that situation where if you need to know about post play, then it's available. If you need to know about getting open on the wing, or how do I initiate my offense, all of these things are available from a fundamental standpoint and, from a technical standpoint. So you add those two together, that's how you become a better basketball player. And as I said, with the information that is out there, it also gives you an opportunity to become a better coach.
Sure. So what have you learned? What have you been able to take, from, I've heard a couple different things from different coaches that, like you said, they're going there and, hey, I want to see what Brad Stevens is running. I want to know what Doc is running. What are some of the things that you've taken specifically?
Well, I think the thing that I think is really good is that you get to go in and you get to see how Brad Stevens thinks. You get to see, what he may possibly run at the end of a game, or a Doc Rivers right there, and how he tries to play defensively, and what is his philosophy defensively in the last couple of minutes of the game. All of this stuff is available to you. So this is great. This is a tremendous tool for youth coaches and learning the basic fundamentals, but it's also very good for people like me or any other NBA coach, because I don't ever think you stop learning. Right.
I had a chance to attend the pro scout school with Pete Philo, and he had one of the Mavs scouts there, and he said something, and I'm very interested to get your opinion on this, where the game has continued to evolve, right? And right now we're in the pace and space, and everyone needs to be versatile and switchable and everything of that nature. But he said something very interesting, where he said he doesn't think the game is going to move away from where it is right now. Do you agree with this, with kind of that sentiment, in terms of saying, like, we're going to always, all players are going to need to be versatile. Fives are going to need to know how to shoot the ball and how to handle the ball. What are your thoughts on that?
I think he's exactly right. And to be honest with you, it's the way European basketball has been for a while. They've had the big centers, but those guys have had the ability to step out on the floor. And I think you're seeing it more and more in our game when you take a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, or an Anthony Davis, or a DeMarcus Cousins, or, you can keep naming big guy after big guy to have the ability not only to play inside and bang, but they're becoming three-point shooters where they can step out on the floor, and some of those guys are making close to 40% of them. So the versatility is going to be there, and I think if you're a young player, then you need to learn not only to play with your back to the basket, but you're going to have to learn to be able to play out on the floor.
So basketball skills in general, they've when you were, I guess, coming up, how do you think the drills have changed, as a result of even how the game has changed? Have you seen that kind of, that shift as well too?
Well, I think one of the things with the player development now is that you get these big guys that are working a lot more on their perimeter game than they would have, 15, 20 years ago. I think they're deciding that they have to have the versatility to be an inside player, but they got to be able to play out on the floor. So I think you see more big guys now continuing to expand their game and work on their perimeter game.
So the last couple two here before I let you get out of here. So regarding you just mentioned the international game a little while as well too. How much of that game or those coaches do you connect with, and maybe borrow drills from that? And again, even you, Rich, is that something where some international coaches, trying to get them involved in the coaching platform?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're gonna. This is basketball, and we want to, and we want it global, And I think that you can learn so much more by having information from all phases of coaching, not just the NBA, not just Europe, but there's college coaches. There's some things that I think you can learn, but the European basketball, I think, is something that you can also learn from. And this is a platform where we're trying to get everyone involved, because we want basketball to be the most global sport that there is. Obviously, our players are the most recognizable ones, and we want that to become the same with the coaches in all aspects of this game.
Warren, I would comment that even just this week here in Las Vegas, you don't have to go any further than the NBA coaching fraternity to get a great international influence. We've worked with Coach Triano from Canada. Had a great day with Coach Messina, one of the all-time great European coaches, and the way he teaches the game. Coach Darko Rajakovic with the Oklahoma City Thunder, showing players how to 20 videos on how to pass off the pick and roll. I mean, very technical information, and even when you were mentioning your question before about the balance of an eCoach platform and player development and players working with their own trainers. Even if you're working with a trainer, and you have the opportunity to go see how Kenny Atkinson teaches how to finish, or to see how Steve Clifford warms his players up every single day in the same drills that are helping them create space in the NBA game, and hearing that come from him. I think it's just it's just a great compliment, even if you're already working with a great trainer, to learn from all these great minds and the same information that they're giving their own NBA players.
Yeah, this platform continues to grow. Coach, last one's a little bit of a joke, but are there enough videos in the eCoach platform to help you guys beat the Warriors?
I don't know if there's any capacity that can handle that right now, but everyone's goal is to catch them. And I think that's been talked about. They're good for the NBA. Of course they're good for the NBA, because there shouldn't be any situation where they try to come back to the pack. Right. The pack has got to find a way to get to them, and I think it gives you something to shoot for every single year. I had the privilege of sitting there on the bench and winning a championship, the first one that we won in 2015, and since then they won 3 out of the 4. And so it's up to us as the other franchises, as coaches, as general managers, as owners. We've got to find a way to close the gap. They should never think about trying to bring the gap back to us. We got to catch the gap, okay?
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it. Again, this is Warren Shaw with the NBA Baseline Podcast, finishing up here with Riding in Car with coaches Alvin Gentry and Rich Temple from eCoach. Thanks so much, guys. Hope you enjoy your rest of your summer.
I still want to do karaoke, okay? I'm not leaving this car without karaoke.
Thanks, Warren.
Thank you.
Callie, Warren Shaw, the Baseline NBA Podcast. And again, Shaw, first of all, kudos to you, man, for getting access to one of the premier head coaches, or coaches, let me use that word, coaches, in Alvin Gentry. But I do definitely think that after this past season, the job that he did for the New Orleans Pelicans, positioning this team after losing one of their big superstars and still being able to make the playoffs, I think is absolutely phenomenal. And I think it's just really surreal when you listen to how head coaches assess, their season. You really ask some really quality questions. And I'm not BSing this. I want people to understand that I think it's important that when we have people out there that are probing, wanting to ask the relevant questions under whatever the circumstances are, to get realness. And I really applaud Alvin Gentry for doing that, to get realness from him about the way that he assessed the Pelicans seasons. you would have to feel like, despite everything that's happened in this offseason, that the Pelicans might actually be okay. If they're going to have you would hope that they don't squander the knowledge and the understanding that Gentry brings to the table, Shaw. I just think it speaks volumes about how he has grown and how much emphasis and energy and everything he's put into the game of basketball, where that actually should benefit a team and an organization like the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's extremely well said. And again, I can't thank Rich Hempel and Ken Jackson, Dave Vogel, all those guys who allowed me to get in the car with them, you know what I mean, and just have these great conversations. And he was extremely genuine, an extremely just open guy. I remember just before we even started the interview, he's like, "Ask whatever you want, man. I'm an open book. We're good to go." Nothing was off limits. And I think it was important that he really did touch on where the Pelicans were as a franchise, but more importantly than what he felt about the eCoach platform, because you'll find out a little bit later on, but he was up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and we did that interview at like maybe 12:30, something like that. But he was up early, filming, did like 3-4 hours of shooting, and walking up to the cameras, and you just don't know what it is when you're seeing these guys. When you see something, what it takes from a video standpoint, it might be like a 2 or 3 minute video. It's hours of shooting, and he was still fresh and was ready to go. He was actually on his way to, I think, the Coaches Association meeting after our interview as well too. So he's extremely warm, extremely genuine, and really, I think, represented the eCoach platform in an amazing way.
I want to pick your brain on this, Shaw, because this is what it's kind of all about. While I think it's great that you can get perspective from Alvin Gentry with reference to the Pelicans season, his application of fundamental basketball principles and things that I think not only should be instilled in the young players that are coming up, that are aspiring to get into the NBA, but the same kind of principles and understanding that he's putting into some of the players, whether they are still with the team or they've moved on, to a brighter horizon, so to speak. Give me a sense of where Alvin Gentry's, mantra was at with this, where he's centered in this, because I think a lot of people only look at the surface on what they see with head coaches and their mannerisms on television during primetime games, or maybe, what you normally see from the media people. But I just also feel like that when you understand the knowledge that most of these guys have absorbed through their years of either playing or coaching, and to be able to exhibit it, find a way to exhibit it to a guy that's making a gazillion dollars, and it still be applicable in them excelling to their craft, being all-stars, legendary players, and things of that nature. I'm just curious, like, what was it like sitting next to a guy that you recognize has absorbed a lot and is actually emulating a lot of this stuff and believing in the platform that eCoach is offering? Because we've seen this time and time again. Some of these platforms, they're fly-by-night platforms. But clearly, Gentry seems to be buying into the idea of its importance and how it really can help build up the next generation's ability to play the game of basketball.
Yeah, I think it's really exactly what you just said. It's just you continue to learn. And I think all coaches and anybody who's worth their salt in anything understands that you can never accumulate enough knowledge, and having access to this out there for players, for coaches, general managers, even the common public, so to speak, just makes you a better basketball mind in general. And it's going to help you with the physical skills. I think even for me, I'm not playing. I may not be going out there and doing those drills, but I may be able to see the results of these drills now when I watch a game, and like when I'm watching NBA basketball and in the regular season. I think Coach Gentry looked at it from that standpoint. There was a question I asked as well too when it comes to how do you mesh all the different opportunities for players and primary players to get better, and how they have their own trainers, and then you have the coaches or the team's internal development staff, and just with things that you may want to get better. And I think he summed it up well. It's like, listen, you want to just get the best accumulation of information that you possibly can, and just have those things kind of align. Obviously, you don't want to have competing forces, but just make sure everybody's kind of on the same page. Okay, well, what do I need to work on? And and platforms like eCoach allow you to do that. And not only, like I said, you can also steal stuff from other guys. You see what Doc Rivers is running. You'll see what Coach Spoelstra is running in Miami. You can see what Van Gundy is running. All of that, like it's all available for you because everybody's participating. And I think that was just the most important thing that he was talking about. That alongside with the consumability of it, Whereas again, if you want to learn about how to press break, if you want to know how to run the fast break, if you want to know about switching and covering pick and rolls on defense, all those things are there available from the different coaches along the NBA Association.
All right, man. So listen, man, now that we had the super, you know what I'm saying, we've got Alvin Gentry, you know what I'm saying, the Gentry effect, right? You also had an opportunity to sit down and talk with one of the co-founders for eCoach and Rich Hempel. So talk a little bit about what our expectations should be with this upcoming interview with him, and how it merges with the importance of having a guy like Alvin Gentry when you had that opportunity to sit down carpool karaoke style to sit down and rap with him on that.
It's more like carpool X's and O's or something like that too, because we didn't get too much singing going on. I think we're all a little shy when it comes to that. But again, Rich Hempel is just such a great guy, great individual. Was just rolled out the red carpet for me, and then on the way back, I think he complimented what Coach Gentry had to say expertly, especially talking about, again, the consumability of the platform, where this is going next. A lot of conversation about the international game as well too, and how it can relate, to people going over there. I think a potential launch in China, things of that nature are also discussed. And then more importantly, just the fact that I asked a great question, at least I thought it was a great question at the end, where it just, listen, what about identifiability, with certain players and certain people, where I work in the fitness industry kind of in my full-time position, right? And I understand, like, when it comes to personal training, sometimes guys want to be trained by guys and girls want to be trained by girls. So does that translate as well to the coaching platform? And, he alludes to the fact that, again, it's not solidified yet, and he's very clear about they're not the NBA. They are working with the NBA Coaches Association and trying to be aligned and adjacent to everything that the NBA is doing, but they are not the NBA specifically. But he'd love to see that, get the WNBA coaches involved as well too, so that you can see some of the female coaches maybe speaking to more of the female players, if that's what speaks to the mind of some of these players, man. So again, about maybe 10-11 minutes long, Rich Hempel leads us through to the upcoming platform. Sorry, not the upcoming platform. What's next? The next steps for eCoach, and what Coach Gentry said to us on the NBA baseline.
All right, Shaw. So coming up, part 2 of the interview, Warren Shaw, Rich Hempel, Baseline NBA Podcast, eCoach style.
What's up, everybody? Again, it's Warren Shaw with the Baseline NBA Podcast. Finishing up our ride with coaches here with my man Rich Hempel from the eCoach. So, Rich, what did you think about what Alvin had to say, on the way, as we dropped him off to his hotel? What are some of the thoughts you have on what he shared with us?
Well, a couple of things. Something that he mentioned specifically. He talked about information being compartmentalized on the eCoach platform, and then you came back and framed that as the consumability of it, and that's really a great point. From the beginning, eCoach and this eCoach basketball platform, the way we design content, it's the way people consume content today. They're typically 1 to 3 minute in length, 1 to 3 minutes in length as a video. It's quick hits. It's something you can get in, get out, get exactly what you need. And again, to use your word, it's meant to be very consumable. So that's something that stood out. But the other thing I want to mention about Coach Gentry and this behind the scenes view that you're getting. I mean, you've now seen this for yourself, how much passion these NBA coaches have for this project. And what we didn't mention was that, this was a shoot here in Las Vegas that was originally scheduled for later in the morning. We picked Coach Gentry up at about 6:45 a.m. today. He was very gracious with his schedule, was more than happy to do it and come out and give his time to this. And that's the way all these coaches are. They are very passionate about sharing their knowledge with the world.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, because when you look at what it takes to produce content in today's era, right? And like I said, you want to leave them wanting more. But what you see as an end user, as a 3-minute video, is a 4 or 5 hour shoot, on your guys' part. And to our listeners, Rich and his crew, they've been out here since the very beginning, like I guess the day before Summer League started. And 11, 12 hour, even longer days, trying to get everything prepared for you guys. What about, this again is the passion for you? The coaches have the passion for it, but what made you really want to kind of go? I know we had you guys featured on, back in February, but for you, just tell us a little bit about what got you started on this.
Well, so my co-founder and really the guy with a great vision behind eCoach is Ken Jackson, and we both had a shared passion for making great coaches available to everyone in the world and really democratizing this coaching space. And where that comes from is really from being parents of our own kids.
Right.
We've each had 2 kids that have been fortunate enough to go on and play college sports, so we were parents through the entire process. And in sports today, it's critical that young players and parents access personal coaching or great coaches, or get to the best camp in order to be the best player they could be, to become a good, whether it's a high school player, college player. But the reality is that access to great coaches is very limited today. It depends on where you live, what kind of financial resources you may have, who your parents may be able to network with, and really the masses don't really get the opportunity to access great coaches. And in a world that you can go online anytime and take a course from a great Harvard professor, Stanford professor, or access some of the greatest business minds in the world, why can't you do that with great coaches? And that was sort of our vision as we started eCoach a few years ago. And then this opportunity to actually execute on that vision literally on a global scale with the greatest coaches in basketball, the NBA, at the height of the NBA game, has just been a dream come true.
So what's next, man? I mean, honestly and truly, it's blown up since, again, when we first featured you guys a couple months ago. How have things changed in that short time frame? And then, what do you see as the next step?
Well, so in the big picture, and we were on before, the big focus had been on creating this product. We shared this vision with the coaches. The coaches, wanted to go on this journey with us, and Rick Carlisle and the Coaches Association were completely committed to it. And so the focus for 12 to 18 months was just creating the product, getting it to market. The things that had to happen with the technology platform, and then creating, doing 20 plus shoots with NBA coaches to get the first version of the product out. So what's changed now is, how do we get the word out to the world that this great resource is available? So that's really what we're focused on now, is letting players, parents, coaches, not just in the U.S. but internationally, know about this great resource. And very soon we're going to be launching in China, and making this available, to a country that has 300 million basketball players, and where the NBA has become one of the biggest brands in the entire country. So our focus is very much shifted to letting the world know about this great product, and that anyone can go access 25 or 30 NBA coaches on a digital platform, on demand, anytime, anywhere.
So let me ask you this, what do you think about, I mean, again, you guys are NBA adjacent, so to speak, because you're not the NBA, but you're working directly with them in a lot of ways. But do you think, going to the situations that they have with their Basketball Without Borders, when they're going to Africa, and as you mentioned, China, they're going to be doing some stuff, I think, in Latin America as well, too. Do you think you'd be able to, guys, to kind of go over there as well, too, and catch us some content and work with even some other coaches, that maybe not our NBA coaches? I think that's the selling point right now, right? That is
Right.
NBA coaches, but
Correct.
But you want good content, and you
Correct.
can get that anywhere. Do you think that's the step that you guys might be willing to take?
Yeah, I think so, and I think to that point, and you mentioned some of Basketball Without Borders and the other tremendous initiatives that the NBA has. I think I would summarize it just by saying that our relationship with the NBA, in terms of just working together and the shared vision of this growing the game around the world, we continue to get closer and closer and closer, and sharing our knowledge and sharing our approaches. So I would see us working together to leverage those events and get the word out about the things that the NBA is doing to grow the game, and how an eCoach basketball platform can complement that, in Africa and China and India and all over the world.
So last one here, Rich. So I always ask these types of questions, so I just want to get some insight. You have access to all the coaches, assistant coaches, things of that nature, but is there a get for you that would be just like, wow, we had him here and we worked with him or her, whether that be an NBA coach, college coach, whatever the case would be, is there a get for you that Rich Hempel's like, yeah, can't believe we got that one?
You mean just in terms of an individual coach?
Yeah. Kind of like almost like you're fanboying out here a little bit.
You know, I have to tell you that, you know, I've had the incredible opportunity now as we're, you know, recording this to have worked with about 30 NBA coaches. And I don't necessarily look at it as a particular coach.
Right.
I look at it as
Conglomerate.
what I've learned and been exposed to with all of these coaches, and just to a person, just what good people they are, what good human beings they are, how much they care about what they're doing. They're just regular people. Some of the biggest names in coaching that just have a conversation in a car, just like we're having it right now, and you're on a first name basis with them. And they care about your family. They care about you. You know, it's not all just about basketball, but they're just good people. So I would say that, you know, that's something that has really stood out. But, you know, and as we say that, you know, we're getting ready to, as you and I are riding back, we're getting ready to do a shoot with Becky Hammonds today, which I think is very significant, and, you know, we're really looking forward to that. And it's just more about the growth of the game, the growth of NBA coaching, and just, you know, very excited about that.
So, all right, now this is the real last one. So as we talk about Becky, obviously she's an NBA coach, but there's something to be said about people in general, where I work in another industry as well too, and sometimes it's the fitness industry, and where sometimes females want to be coached by the females, and then guys, you know, feel more comfortable with guys, or vice versa. You know, what's the next step in eCoach platform for maybe working with WNBA coaches and getting them involved? So for those who might, for lack of a better phrase, like, listen, I just want to hear from, you know, someone who looks like me when it comes to the coaching platform.
Well, I will say this, that from the very beginning vision of this project, which Coach Jim O'Brien was really the inspiration behind this, and we worked, you know, closely with, you know, David Vogel, the executive director, and his longtime boss and the founder of the association, Michael Goldberg, before his passing. There was always a vision to expand, you know, beyond just NBA coaches, to include WNBA, to include, you know, the women's game as much as the men's game. So these are all areas that we want to and plan to expand to as quickly as possible.
Awesome. Well, Rich, thank you so much for taking the time and having the baseline out with you here for the last couple of days and enjoying the eCoach platform. Again, this has been an amazing experience. We thank you again and wish you nothing but continued success.
And we appreciate your support. Thanks.
Callie Warren Shaw, Baseline NBA Podcast. Awesome interview, Shaw, with Rich Hempel. Let me pick at your brain, man, as we go aftermath style on this. You know, one of the things that I think that stands out to me is maybe the intent or the notion that platforms like eCoach want to recenter the flow of information as it pertains to the encouragement and the tutorial aspects of players getting better. There's been this connotation that the NBA, the NFL, MLB has left in other sports, right? Tennis, golf, all those other sports have left the principles and the understanding of coaching players to be better, to be great, to understand the game, to transition themselves as the game continues to evolve. They've left it in the hands of more independent people. And I feel like now that the NBA is being more involved with and partnering with more legitimized platforms, especially in the digital aspect of things. Where Rich Hempel wants to do is he wants to kind of corral a little bit of the free reign that still goes, where it's not limiting people from their independence of being able to teach other kids or anything like that, but more centralizing that flow of information so that people are staying up to date and there's more of an even keel of how you go about teaching the principles, say, of the game of basketball. And I think that speaks boldly because when you have NBA coaches involved on that platform to do that, it legitimizes the information that is being given, because you have to assume that even college kids are being given the same type of, if not close to the same type of information on how to be better basketball players, preparing them to play on a professional level.
Yeah, they're very proud of what they've accomplished in a short time, and their relationship with the NBA Coaches Association, and just how they've taken to it, really and truly. They'll tell you, and they're not, they're not cocky about it. but they're proud in very much ways. Like, hey, they went in there and made a killer presentation that hooked the NBA coaches like almost immediately. And then the fact that I can say this like firsthand because I mean I was there, and I remember Coach Gentry even afterwards like he's like, hey man, you guys got this thing running like a fine old machine in terms of getting us in here and getting us out. There was no wasted time, and I think that's what the whole platform itself speaks about. There's no wasted time. You want to know about this? Here's this. You want to know about that? There's that, and it's very easy. And they are just trying to create something that speaks to anybody who's interested in just getting better or learning more about the game itself. And sport to remember, eCoach isn't just about basketball. They have other platforms as well too. But obviously for us here, that's what we're focused on. But this is great business opportunity. I wish I had known these guys earlier. Maybe I could have got in on the ground floor and maybe help invest or do something like that too, because I really think this is going to continue to grow and to blow up, especially when you have coaches willingly and eagerly wanting to participate and then complimenting them after the fact about what a great job they're doing, even just in how they're handling it, let alone the content that they're producing, how they're handling each coach and building relationships with them, I think is a very important. How they treated us, as a podcast, all that goes into the brand that eCoach is building. And I think it's phenomenal what Rich Hempel and Ken Jackson have been able to do with eCoach.
I want to also follow up on something that you talked about with reference in your interview with Rich Hempel, and that's how the international game is being affected with a platform or a tool like eCoach. One of the things that we've often talked about, Shaw, is the difference between the styles of basketball that's played here in the United States and then the world game, right? Like internationally, the way and the style of basketball that's being played in other countries, and how we can only see that contrast of style of play in one of two ways. One, it's either when they're playing in the Olympics or some kind of world international event type of competition. And then the other way is if the international players themselves are being drafted and are infusing that international play of basketball via through either the head coaches or the players that are actually out there executing or playing on the basketball court. Is there any way that you can kind of sense with your conversation with Rich Hempel how much of that balance is there, where the principles of what is understood in eCoach is not to degrade or denigrate what the international game of basketball represents, but to more so embrace a lot of some of those principles and the understanding of how that has influenced the style, the pace of play, and the execution of some of the players that are out there right now. Like sometimes people can't correlate that Steph Curry's game has a little international flavor to it, even though he is part of the Curry generation of basketball players. And then you look at a guy like Lauri Markkanen, who very much represents the current modern NBA style of player that we often kind of gravitate to as far as the way that the NBA may be moving forward. And then you see how a guy like Luka Doncic is a top 3 lottery draft pick, a lottery draft pick, excuse me. Talk a little bit about where that all kind of played out in the head of Rich Hempel from when you were talking with him.
Well, I think it stems even back to the conversation with Coach Gentry as well too, with Rich there. We had a conversation or a question was raised, and we'll get into this later in the podcast, but something that I was at Pro Scout School, our guy Pete Philo, allowed me to come to that as well. And something that was raised there was just the growth of the NBA and kind of where it's at right now. So there's ebbs and flows of how styles are made in the league. And where we're at right now is pace and space. Everyone needs to be versatile. Everyone needs to be able to shoot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Coach Gentry and Rich both alluded to the fact that, hey, well, this is where the European game has kind of always been. And there's a very strong possibility that the NBA is not going to revert back to the more physical style, the more plotting situations, with bigs and things of that nature where bigs dominate. Bigs need to be able to handle the ball. They need to be able to shoot the basketball, even if not out to 3, at least out to 16 or 18 feet. And I think those conversations were definitely had, I think, with both gentlemen, who really reiterated that the international game has a big influence on where we're going basketball holistically, so to speak. And I think that's what we're going to see continue moving forward, that these drills, these things that eCoach is providing, it's going to help people throughout. And I even asked, hey, well, how have drills changed from the early 90s to where the drills are right now? And again, there's a shift in that as well too. So I think Rich and those guys, they're going to continue to be on those trends. They're going to ask coaches like, okay, well, what are you teaching? What are you having your bigs? What are you having your wings? What are you having your guards work on? Can you show that to us here in the eCoach platform?
All right, man. Well, there you have it. Listen, first of all, Shaw, kudos to you, my brother. You are one of the hardest workers that people don't talk about enough, for actually putting yourself in a position to execute and get opportunities to interview one of the premier coaches in the game of the NBA in Alvin Gentry, and really one of the up and coming executives, in Rich Hempel, as far as digital platforms go, because he definitely has a gem with the e-coaching platform. And I just think across the board, this is really great stuff for us, who are consumers of not just the NBA, but the product of basketball, to keep in mind and to watch very closely, as we continue forward to the next season and the season after that, where a platform like eCoach will have made significant contributions, in the quality and the upgrading of the talent that we see on a day in, day out basis when it comes to basketball. You're tuned to
Yeah,
the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry again. I one last shout out to Rich and Ken for allowing me there. Collier Mills as well too. Got to reconnect. See him in person. And I think it was just amazing that they'd allowed us that opportunity, and hopefully we can continue to build on this brand, this relationship, because eCoach is already blown up and it's going to continue to get larger, man. So, absolutely.
Most definitely, man. All right, coming up, my man Shaw bowling out in Vegas, pro scout school style, here on the Baseline NBA podcast. Time now for the drop. Callie Warren Shaw, the Baseline NBA podcast. This week on the drop, man, my man Shaw, man, all out balling in Vegas. I mean that literally from the NBA sense. Doing this thing out there during NBA Summer League. And one of the things I think was really cool about your experience out there in Vegas, Shaw, was that you had the opportunity to participate in the Pro Scout School that they have. And, listen, I want to tell people really quick, the experience of going out to NBA Summer League, and especially from your account, Shaw, it's more than just about sitting in a gymnasium and watching drafted talent go out there and play, NBA style basketball through the course of a week. There are so many things that seem to be happening. And I think in its own way, the NBA Summer League has elevated itself into kind of an off-season all-star week style type of, where activities are out there that are very focused and central to the idea of basketball, the increase in play of basketball, the business of the NBA. A lot of things are happening out there, Shaw, and I know you had an opportunity to focus on one of those aspects in going to the Pro Scout School.
Yeah, absolutely. Vegas is a networking event when it comes to Summer League. I think people realize that it's hard to go in there and watch bad basketball in some cases for 10, 12 hours between Thomas and Mack and Cox Pavilion. There just needs to be other things to do to kind of take your mind off of it. And of course, you're going to go check out the games, but it's important to check out everything possible. And all kinds of activations were out there. Bleacher Report had something, and NBA Labs was out there in Mandalay Bay. NBA Alumni had something in Mandalay Bay as well too, with a conference and a women's conference and all kinds of stuff going on. But Pete Philo, who we had on our show last year, invited me out to Pro Scout School last year, and also invited me again this year. And this is an opportunity where people who just need to understand the game better, whether you actually want to work in the NBA or whether you just want to have better skills and understanding of how basketball works, from the coaching level, from the general management level, from the scouting level. This is an opportunity, a 2-day conference for you. They have an opening night, a welcomer, a mixer. I think I was on Sunday night, and then 2 full days of just knowledge of great professionals coming in, anywhere from scouts to NBA insiders to coaches to player development guys. It was just a great opportunity to go out there again for a second straight year. And I think this is the 5th or 6th year that the TPG Sports Group has had the Pro Scout School, and just continues to get better every single year.
So, as you were out there, Shaw, highlight to me some of the important things that we took away from this year's Pro Scout School, and where, from your angle, like from how you're seeing it, these are things that we may want to kind of keep our eye on as we near this upcoming NBA season, based on that experience.
Well, I think a lot of it really just is dependent on where you're at in terms of your basketball career. Like, where are you trying to go with it, and what are you trying to do? first session was inside an NBA front office that I attended. Fran Fraschilla from ESPN has hosted it. He hosted it last year as well too, and he's kind of moderating and proctoring the entire day, asking the panelists, if you will, the questions, and then fielding some questions if there's time from the audience. So that was the first session. Then they had something with keys to success and what that was about. And then they had coaching and preparation, and that kind of closed out the first day. GM experience, draft room experience. So anything that you're interested in, that's where you kind of had to focus your energies. You know what I mean? It's not everything related to everybody, because if you're interested in the GM experience, well, you may not be so much about not so much about the player development or something like that, or whatever, advanced scouting or something like that. Like I said, everything seemed to align in some way. And you just kind of had to pick the parts that you were most interested in. And for me, that whole first day that I was there, I was interested in everything. So this first panel, where it was inside an NBA front office, Rich Cho, former general manager of the Blazers, and obviously worked in the Charlotte Hornets with Michael Jordan, and Matt Lloyd, assistant GM of the Orlando Magic. He works now with John Hammond, and Dave Pendergraph, one of the scouts for Dallas Mavericks. That was the first panel. And those guys were just so insightful and dropped so many nuggets. I'll say one thing here. Matt Lloyd, he talks about what he needs to do, and this even goes back to our earlier conversation with eCoach, is some consumability. So if he has a report of however many players, right, he doesn't want to go and give John Hammond a 600-page analytical report of all the players they've been scouting. He's got to find a way to make that consumable for John Hammond to dissect and then evaluate. He's not going to hand him 600 pages. It might be 25 pages, might be 30 pages, something that's consumable for him. And he's like, listen, getting all the information is possible, but what do people really need to know? You need to be able to pull out the root of the information and get that to people on a regular basis. And I think that was very valuable for people to learn and to hear. And Rich Cho, with his in-depth knowledge of the salary cap and mid-level exemptions and traded player exemptions, and he gave like a 3-minute, it was amazing. He gave like a 3-minute dissertation on the salary cap, and I saw these kids, their heads literally explode. Just because, like, you know what I mean? Because there's always if and but then rules, so to speak, when it comes to the salary cap. So I think those types of panelists and their knowledge are just extremely impactful for everybody to hear at any point in their basketball careers.
So just to kind of summarize what you were talking about as it relates specifically to this example that you utilized, there's obviously a need for people's ability to take information, to be able to break it down and then reshape it and remold it in a condensed, very precise, straight to the point style of analytics that will allow general managers and upper management to make the best possible decision necessary about their organization, about the roster, and really the style of basketball that they think that they need to be on moving forward. And so it's amazing to me, Shaw, because normally when we're putting our analysis, our quote unquote our twist on our interpretation of certain games, whether it's in the playoffs or through the course of the regular season, our twist is basically on the surface. Beneath the surface, there's a plethora of information and data that probably has not surfaced simply because it has been put in a format that has allowed certain GMs, organizations, to assess the best decision that they're going to make possible for what they think is in their best interest for the team moving forward. Even as maybe on as we try to simplify it and say, I don't know what they were thinking, but clearly there's information that's out there that probably will make them lean to the opposite direction of what we will probably be interpreting.
Yeah, I think that's, a great way to kind of summarize it. And there's just so many other key points. I wrote down so many bullets when it comes to the panelists and things that they said. And even with that, too, that talent doesn't fit every system, and you need to draft guys that fit your culture. And they talked about how, hey, you often hear about, well, does this guy just need a change of scenery to be better, and how players develop better under different coaches, and the role is different, and all those things, and understanding where you are as a coach, where you are as an organization. There was a great comment about taking risk, how some teams consistently are risk averse, but you can maybe take more risk when you have better talent on your roster, so to speak. So you look at the case of the Golden State Warriors, and I think this is exactly what they were talking about well, they can take more risks because they have a strong locker room, they have strong personalities in place, so they can add a personality like DeMarcus Cousins to that locker room and see where it goes. And in some ways, they had a tester run when they had JaVale McGee and Nick Young in there, two quirky personalities that they brought in the locker room and were able to succeed with. So now, okay, can they take it to the next level and bring in DeMarcus Cousins? All these conversations were taking place kind of there, staying coachable, not just for the players themselves, but for the coaches. The coaches need to stay coachable and need to stay teachable. I wrote down something to the effect is that if you listen to a player, he'll show you how to coach him. And certain things talking about, well, some guys can't handle being yelled at in front of everybody, but when you put your arm around them on the side, you kind of say, hey, you know what, next time can you zig instead of zagging? And now that player has a little difference. I think that was Vinny Del Negro who was talking about that, and with the player that he was working with. And they didn't mention the player specifically. But again, those are the types of lessons and things that we learned there. I got to bring this up as well, too, kind of off of the player development and working with the coaches. Sham Scenario was there, man. I mean, he dropped some amazing knowledge about just kind of his career. We had him on our show when he was still with Real GM. And a lot of people don't realize, he was 16 years old when he started writing for Real GM and started breaking news and writing these pieces and articles. And he said, yeah, I would contact agents and I'd contact organizations. Nobody asked how old I was, and it was great. So, all I said, hey, I was, this is Sham Scenario with Real GM, and that kind of got his foot through the door, so to speak. And he was contacting anybody from equipment managers, in essence, to get scoops. If you don't know the coaches, if you don't know the players, you don't have the agents, well, who are the people who can get you some information? And he shared about what it was like, to kind of get there. And I tell you that only to say that it's about the hustle. It's about the grind. And nobody's is too big to kind of start at the bottom, so to speak. And Shams did, and he expressed that greatly, and what it was like to work with Woj and everything like that too. So again, if you get a chance to check out Pro Scout School, man, it's something you should definitely do. A lot of great talent, a lot of great information from all walks of life in the NBA.
Yeah, and another temporary point is there have been rumors about Shams Charania possibly joining the ESPN family, and what a combination that would be with him and Adrian Wojnarowski. Warge bombs and the shamlessness, boy.
Well, yeah.
And
let me because again, we talked a little bit while I wasn't interviewing him, so to speak, but conversation was brought up about the NBA draft and what it was like, how they were supposed to have this, this embargo, so to speak, on the picks. And then he's like, well, we were all kind of in line with it. And then, Woj got very creative, with his wording in terms of breaking the picks. And so then it was like 2 or 3 picks in. Then Shams was like, yeah, well, then he got a call from, the Yahoo executives. They're like, okay, the gloves are off. Do what you need to do, because they didn't want to continue to get beat by Woj in the way that he was creatively manipulating the system, so to speak. So a great story that was shared there. And that's stuff that you're not going to get unless you're at Pro Scout School listening to these guys, hearing it from the horse's mouth, man.
Awesome stuff, man. And to your point, Shaw, this might actually correlate to the same thing we were just talking about with Golden State. I will also probably pose this as another element for people who don't understand, the dynamics that go into this. Guys like Damian Jones, draft pick for the Golden State Warriors, Javon Looney, draft pick for the Golden State Warriors. Usually when a player like JaVale McGee, Jaja Pachulia, guys who have been starters for championship winning basketball teams, you would think that the next man up, there would be an opportunity, so to speak, for them to finally display their talents to the coaches, to the organization, to prove their worth to the guys that are going out there winning the bulk of the games that the Golden State Warriors have won over the last 4 years. I also would challenge the idea that this may actually force these guys to step up and play better if the Warriors felt that it was necessary for them to go out and reach out to a guy like Boogie Cousins.
Yeah, it truly is. So again, if you haven't had an opportunity, make sure you follow them, on Twitter at TPG Sports Group. Hashtag is Pro Scout School. Great website. They do kind of, I want to say, yearly sessions where they have these. This was a conference that was 3 days long, but they have, I think it's like a semester long program that you can take to kind of learn and get the finer nuances of scouting and advanced player development and things of that nature. So make sure you check them out. Shout out to Pete Follow and his team for allowing us access again for a second straight year. great opportunity, great collection of basketball minds that was out there in Las Vegas, and I was excited to be a part of that as well.
Most definitely, brother. I can't wait for us to bring those guys back on there once again at some point, if not before the season starts or sometime during the season as well, too. I think their insight will be invaluable as we enter into this upcoming NBA season. Once again, man, we appreciate everybody tuning in to a great episode of The Baseline. Once again, be sure to get my man Shaw at Shaw Sports NBA. For The Baseline, Cali, Warren Shaw, we appreciate you guys. You know we do. And we'll catch up with you next time.